Good afternoon. This is the show on CanesCentral. I am Joe Gaither, obviously. You are watching us on the Miami Hurricanes on SI YouTube channel or listening to us on the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. We appreciate everybody who's checking us out on the Miami Hurricanes on SI website. Find us, Miami Hurricanes on SI. Just type in Miami Hurricanes and SI into your Google machine, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. Well, really, Miami. It'll be the first thing that pops up. We are back for another episode. We had a little bit of a summer break, a little bit of an August out of town break, and so now we are back as we are 7 days away from University of Miami kicking off its season against the Florida Gators. So let's welcome in our site expert, Justice Sandle. You check him out at Justice_News5 on the Twitter machine, and you check out all of his great work at Miami Hurricanes on SI. Justice, how's your August been? It's been a minute. Hope you're doing well.
No, we're doing well. Just getting geared up for the football season. Very excited about what's coming up with the Canes. So here we go.
Absolutely. All right. So it's been 3 weeks or so since we got together. The last time we got together was ACC Media Days, as you reminded me. I thought it was the week earlier, but we spent some time in Charlotte, hearing from Mario Cristobal and Cam Ward and the like. But now everybody's returned to Coral Gables, and you've had fall camp. So let's talk about fall camp. Let's talk about fall camp and lead into next week's matchup against the Florida Gators. Justice, let's just start with, what's the biggest story? What was the biggest story of fall camp? Now that it is concluded, what was the biggest story of fall camp?
In my opinion, I think the offensive line is the biggest story because of what Mario Cristobal has been able to do over the past few years with his offensive line coming in and being able to rebuild the offensive line for what Miami has now, what they'll be able to do with Cam Moore taking center and the litany of running backs that they have back there, just the dominance of the offensive line. Now, it's been a back and forth between the offensive winning some days, the defense winning some days. I think that's a good balance of what you want towards the future, especially continuing to grow into what you want as the season progresses. The season starts next week. So the offensive line has been the biggest story for me so far.
All right, well, what have you learned about the offensive line? How confident are you in these guys? We look up front, you see Samson Okunlola. We remember him as a very, very highly touted recruit. You see Inez Cooper. You see Zach Carpenter, Jalen Rivers, and Francis Mauinoga. So, these are guys we're familiar with already. What did you learn about them in fall camp?
I think that since they're returning 3 starters from last season, that leadership ability to also lead on into the depth. They do have some depth in the offensive line room as well. I think that their size shocks a lot of people because for most people in the ACC, you won't think that these offensive linemen are as huge as they are. I think the smallest offensive lineman that they have, if my memory serves correct, is 6'5", and they're all 300 pounds plus. Monsters in the trenches. And I think with that, going into the season, I think that what they've been able to do for the running backs is the biggest thing because people are going to say with Cam Ward, they're going to throw the ball, they're going to do a lot of things. Mario Cristobal he was an offensive lineman. He is an offensive lineman. He understands that winning in the trenches is the biggest thing. Miami's going to run the football, and they're going to run the football down your throat. Now, if we want to lead that into what's going to happen against Florida, you're going to see a lot of that too. You're going to see the dominance of what the offensive line is going to do, run the ball, controlling the offensive line. The only thing that concerns people about the offensive line, especially coming off last season, is the amount of penalties that they had. A lot of false starts, a lot of different type of things. So if they get that under control, it'll be one of the best offensive lines in the country.
Well, we've seen a lot of – we've been saying that a lot about different Miami position groups. This could be the best position group in the ACC. This could be the best position. Like we're talking about wide receivers. We're talking about quarterbacks. Now offensive line. A couple of weeks ago, it was defensive line as well. The expectations for Miami are through the roof. I'm seeing our friend Josh Pate, Late Kick Josh. You're seeing Heather Dennis from ESPN, Greg McElroy from ESPN. Lots of people. ACC champions. And it was, first of the summer when we did our game-by-game prediction, and you had Miami right there in the ACC championship prediction picture. So now that we've gone through fall camp, I want to ask you how the guys have managed and how they are managing these very, very high expectations.
They are managing it by not really thinking about it. They know what they have to do this season. it's automatic. They know exactly what they need to do this season. They know that they're expected to win big, and they're expected to win in a very dominant fashion. But the thing is, Cam Ward has said it, and I think a lot of other people have said it in the locker room. There's no ego in the locker room. They know what they need to get done to win, and that's what they're going to do. I think managing those expectations is the biggest thing, especially the way that Mario Cristobal and the entire locker room has been focused on fall camp. They've strictly been focused on fall camp, taking it one day at a time, taking it one step at a time. They haven't even mentioned the Florida game. Now, that's not saying that they haven't thought about it. Of course, they're playing them next week, but it's the mindset they have. One day at a time, they're going to get better. 1%, everything that they're trying to do is just to get better for the next day. And once they lead up to those next days, then you'll get to the next game day, and then they'll be better and continue to go from there.
All right, yesterday on the MiamiHerald.com, Barry Jackson put out a lengthy, little blurb, bunch of blurbs about Miami's fall camp. And so I'm going to use some of these blurbs, and we're going to create some talking points. And I'm going to start with the very first one. Freshman cornerback O.J. Frederick has been outstanding, producing interceptions and pass breakups and making a case for early playing time. Let's combine that blurb with, who was it from 24/7? I sent you a text message earlier. Let's find it.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Grant Hughes.
Grant Hughes, yeah, thank you very much. Grant Hughes from 24/7, we're combining two topics here, says that Miami's biggest concern is the lack of depth in the secondary. So we were talking before we hit live about these freshmen. So tell us about O.J. Frederick, and let's combine it all into kind of Miami's secondary concerns and depth issues.
Okay, secondary concerns. First, you have your returner in Daryl Porter Jr. Then you also have Misha Powell coming from the national championship runner-up in the Washington Huskies with Misha Powell. Both of them will combine, and there'll be those two of those key pieces in the back. Ooh, hello, Jonah. Jonah, that's my dog. Jonah, leave. Kill.
We love dogs. That's all right. What kind of dog is he?
The German Shepherd.
All right, if you want to see Jonah the German Shepherd, make sure you're watching us on the Miami on SI YouTube channel. We appreciate the cameo from Jonah. Very good. Go ahead, man.
Absolutely. So with the secondary, the thing is, it's the lack of depth. Like I said, Daryl Porter Jr. is returning. Then you also have Misha Powell coming from Washington coming over. But outside of that, then you go to O.J. Frederica, and then you have the rest of the locker room. You still have Isaiah Taylor coming in from Arizona. He's competing in that position along with other like redshirt sophomores and things like that. The issue is last season they were ranked 55th in pass defense compared to what they were able to do with their run defense, and they were the top 20 run defense last year. The biggest thing I said earlier when we first started this is that the secondary is going to be the key to everything. And O.J. Frederica is one of those players that could be a game changer. His size, his length, he's a ball hawk. And I think that's one of the best things about him is that you need those type of playmakers that are just going to, if you have to blow up your own call just to go get a ball, just to get the ball, he's going to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the best things about him. And I think that he probably will see a lot of playing time this season, especially with how lack of depth in that room in the way that he's been standing out during fall camp. I think that he will see some playing time. He's going to make a couple plays, and I think that's all you need. You just need a secondary that'll be able to make plays when you need to make plays, especially knowing that they're likely going to be attacked often and very quickly throughout the season. Their front seven is already solidified. You already know every single name that you could possibly think of, top draft picks all around the board in their front seven. The secondary is the issue. If that secondary is solidified with OJ, as well as all the other pieces around him, I think that they'll be fine.
All right, we're going to keep it going with some of these freshmen. Lots of buzz around Jordan Lyle. We've talked about, we just kind of teased around the running game, but freshman running back Jordan Lyle is getting a lot of favorable attention during fall camp. And another freshman wide receiver, Nye Carr. We spent a lot of time on wide receivers about 6 weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago, but Nye Carr didn't really get brought up as a true freshman. So what do we know about Jordan Lyle and Nye Carr and how much they might be contributing to the Miami Hurricanes offense in 2024?
Talented. Now with the running back situation, it's a lot going on. You have a lot of different players. You have a lot of different things going on. So right now, Mark Fletcher Jr. is one of the biggest concerns if you want to think about injuries, quote unquote. He's suffered from what he suffered last season coming into this season. They're just being very cautious with him right now. He's one of their key pieces on the offense. You just want to be cautious with him, especially coming into next season. So with Jordan Lyle, quick, explosive. And I think that's one of the best things about him. A lot of the players that they've been recruiting recently have been fast. They'll sit and be patient behind that big offensive line, but once they see that break, once they see that hole open, they take off and they're gone. That's what Jordan Lyle is doing. I think that you see that with Chris Johnson as well, another freshman, sophomore now, coming in. He's going to do that as well. Nye Carr, catching everything that you can possibly imagine. Fantastic freshman coming out. I think that with most freshmen, like you'll see with wide receivers, they'll probably play a lot in the punt game and a lot of kickoff return and do things like that. But his speed, his ability to catch the ball, I think you'll see a lot of maybe if they utilize some jet sweeps or some type of motion actions, you can see him in a lot of that as well. But I think that with his talent, he'll be able to see the field. He'll be able to see what the ball will come to him. And I think that he is a playmaker, and he'll be a playmaker enough to get the ball. So I think that.
We're continuing our conversation with Justice Sandle from Miami Hurricanes on SI. You guys check us out on Miami Hurricanes on SI YouTube channel, or right there on the Joe Gaither Show on Spotify, on CanesCentral, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. Let me throw at you something that I saw from a Florida State, just blogger type. Okay, not really news type. I don't want to make this sound too official, but just a fan-based blogger type. I saw pretty recently saying Ruben Bain is going to have an underwhelming season, going to take a big step back this year. So let's just say that they're looking into the future. Why would, outside of injury, because that's the easy answer. What would cause Ruben Bain to take a step back this year?
Nothing. I don't know why people will believe that. I understand last season there might not have been the amount of talent that they've had. The amount of talent on the defensive line, you can't double team anybody. If you double team one, another person's going to break off and get something else. If you double team Ruben Bain, Tyler Barron on the other side, coming to get somebody. Double team Tyler Barron. Simeon Barrow Jr. coming in. Ruben Bain. Akeem Messador. There's so many names on that defensive line. I don't understand why people would even believe that Ruben Bain would even take a slight regression back. Plus, he's also gotten in better physical shape than what he was last season. He looks better. He's lifting better. He's eating better. He has that full collegiate D1 year of nutrition and everything inside of him. And he did that last year as a freshman. Imagine what he's going to do coming in as a sophomore with that full nutrition year behind him, all the programming, everything that goes on into developing a talent. Some people just don't. No, I'm not. Some people just look. They have their opinions. I understand that, but players like Ruben Bain Jr., I don't believe that there can be a regression with him. He is likely going to be a top 10 pick, not in this year's draft, but in the next year's draft. If he continues on the pace that he continued from last season going into this season, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, maybe even more. I know that's high praise and high hopes for one of the best players in the country, but if you saw what he did last season, tossing around one of the best offensive linemen in the country in Clemson's offensive line, throwing people around, he's German suplexing people, genuinely suplexing people around. I don't want to see how people will be able to say that about him.
All right, Barry Jackson's final note, we're skipping to the very end of his little report, says this, and I want to get your reaction, Justice. Strength of the team, ? Quarterback, defensive line, offensive line, and running back, and potentially wide receiver. UM must clean up penalties and red zone issues, which were a problem last year, but an evaluator who has watched Miami closely says that he believes that this is Miami's best roster in 15 years.
Yes. That's a simple answer. Yes. Everywhere you look, everywhere. There's talent everywhere. Cam Ward will likely play his way into a Heisman dark horse potential. People have selected him to win the Heisman already on many different broadcasts. CBS's broadcast, some pundits on ESPN, some pundits on Fox. They have already selected Cam Ward to be a Heisman contender. That running back room is incredible. Damian Martinez, Mark Fletcher Jr., you have A.J. Allen, you have all the other young talent that's there. You don't even talk about the wide receiver room. Sam Brown is one of the most outstanding players that has been playing throughout fall camp. His transfer from Houston, he is that over-the-top guy, speed, just going to break off. You don't think about the type of offense that Miami can have. Miami has the chance to have the most balanced offense in the entire ACC. Cam Ward, Sam Brown, Xavier Restrepo. Isaiah Horton, if you want to play Isaiah Horton, you still have Jacoby George. Even the tight ends that will be used this season compared to last season because of the injuries, that'll also play into a factor too. Everywhere around Miami, it's just talented. Like you said, in the past 15 years, this is the most talented roster that Miami has recruited and brought in. That's a fact. It is. The only issue, like we mentioned earlier, is the secondary. But if the talent that they brought in to aid the secondary plays to just a standard of where they can be at least a top 30, top 25 type pass defense, that smells like an ACC championship and then possibly a natty. Possibly.
Okay, so my question is this. If Miami doesn't live up to expectations, if Miami doesn't have a 10-win season, and obviously other things can happen in the ACC, better teams can be better, but like if you don't have at least a 10-win season, are people going to be calling for Mario Cristobal's job? Because it seems like there's been up and down points in Mario Cristobal's tenure at Miami. Obviously, very, very exciting as far as, oh, wow, he's rallied the fan base. He's kind of re-energized the base. He's re-energized the basic of the program by re-inviting all the players back into the program and being a high-level recruiter. And obviously, he played there. All the pageantry and all the tradition is returned. So like, there's a little bit of Miami's favorite son involved here, but there's also, okay, you've built up and now there's expectations. If you end up having a year where there's a 2023 end of the Georgia Tech game coaching error or 3 or 2 that has cost you your best, cost you an ACC championship or cost you a chance to play for an ACC championship with the best roster ever, how patient will the Miami fan base be? Will they just say, okay, well, he's been a high-level recruiter. He's going to continue. This talent baseline that we've built is only going to keep going, so we'll stick with him. Or is there going to be a little bit of a, well, this is as good as we've been in 15 years talent-wise, and you can't get it done, so may as well punt. Well, what do you take on the expectations placed directly on Mario Cristobal's shoulders?
So, with the roster, with everything that's combined into the culmination of the upcoming season, I think I won't say he will. I said he was on the hot seat earlier when we talked about it earlier. I said he will be on the hot seat. I don't think he'll be completely on the hot. Now, if everything just completely falls off the rails, yeah, you got to be on the hot seat. But I don't think baseline is an 8-4 season with a positive conference record. If he goes off that, that's a successful third year, and you're continuing to go. Then you have a nice bowl game, and then if you win your bowl game, cool. The expectations, though, is the playoffs. It's just the playoffs. That's the goal. The expectation and goals are the playoffs. Many people have them placed like in that 3 slide, maybe 2 slide, or even in one of the 12 because of how talented the roster is and just the preseason expectations. For Mario Cristobal, everything just has to fall off the rails for him to be on that hot seat. I don't think that'll happen. I think that from last season that they learned what they need to do and what they don't need to do. Many of those losses came within 1 scores anyway. So it was a lot of, if we clean up this era right here, they would have been in that ACC championship game last season. I think that going into year 3, since he signed a 10-year contract anyway. So I don't believe that, like I said, unless everything just completely falls off the rails, then you put him on the hot seat. I'm going to retract that hot seat statement. I think that everything will be perfectly fine this season. Expectations, I believe that they'll get to that 10-win season. I think that they don't believe that they won't get that 10-win season. They know what they have to do, especially for everything about the community, everything culminating together for this season with Legends Week, everything leading up to what they're going to play in Gainesville next week. Mario Cristobal has no reason to be on the hot seat unless everything falls off the rails. He should perform. He should have his coaching staff perform. That's the biggest thing. Everybody knows about the roster. It's all about the coaching and his coaching staff. It's literally the only thing. If he's able to perform, then he'll be perfectly fine.
All right, Justice. Miami opens up its season next week against the Florida Gators, but the ACC actually starts tomorrow in Dublin, in Ireland. So obviously we're not covering Florida State and we're not covering Georgia Tech, but let's just open up and ask you your general thoughts on the season opener, week 0, Florida State and Georgia Tech over there in Dublin, Ireland.
I think it's a great game. I think that Georgia Tech is going to surprise a lot of people. I have them upsetting Florida State there. I really do. I do. Haynes King is a very, very good quarterback, and I think he'll learn from the mistakes that he had last season, especially with Jamal Haynes as his running back too. I think that them going forward, I think that they'll be better. I think that I just don't think DJ Uiagalelei is he's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a better thrower of the ball than me. That's why I'm doing this. But I just don't think that, even though Florida State has a lot of talent, they did lose a lot of talent as well. And I think that that'll be shown. I think that Georgia Tech will upset them, and I think they'll come out with a victory.
That's crazy, but that's gonna be a lot of fun. 21, I think they were 21. Is that what I saw? 21-point favorite.
I think so.
Double check. Florida State, Georgia Tech. Oh goodness gracious, that's great, Ray. That's great. Control F favorite. Yeah. Actually, no. The Seminoles are a 10.5-point favorite, so not as crazy. Not as crazy. All right, 10.5 points. That's not as wild for Justice to be calling the upset. We'll see if Georgia Tech can do it. Justice, here's what I want to do next week, and you can jump in and mend it. What I want to do for the rest of the year, really, next week we open with Florida. And so what I want to do some point between Monday and Friday is have an episode talking about the Florida game. And then the following week, I want to have one episode recapping the Florida game. And then the next episode recapping Miami's next opponent. I don't have it pulled up right here. Miami football. They're second. They're playing Ball State, right?
Yeah.
No, Florida A&M. Excuse me, Florida A&M. They're playing Florida A&M and then Ball State. So what I want to do is next week we'll talk about Florida. And the following week, we'll have one episode breaking down the Florida game, 20 minutes or so on the Florida game. And then later on in the week, we'll have another episode kind of setting up the Florida A&M Rattlers. So through the football season, it'll be 2-week episodes recapping the game that was, and then later on in the week, setting up the game to come. How about that?
Absolutely.
All right, and let everybody know how you will spend your game week. Obviously, we will have an episode, but what will you be doing next week as it is game week? And then we'll get on out of here.
I'm going to be since I am not going to be at the game in Gainesville, I will be locked in my room, ready and prepared for everything. So just getting some stories up about the game, different players that you need to watch out for, especially on the Florida side. Florida has a talented roster. The thing is that they got a lot of just discombobulation going on in their organization, in their athletic program right now. So, and that's the only reason that things might go astray. But Florida still has a very talented roster. So a couple of players to look out for, a couple of different storylines that are going into this game on both sides. So those are the things that I'm working on and how I'm preparing for game week.
All right, we'll talk to you next week after you do your prep so we can get informed on the Florida Gators and how Miami will get its season off to a 1-0 start. Justice, thanks so much for your time, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Justice Sandle joining us. You follow him at Justice_News5 on the Twitter machine. You follow Miami Hurricanes at CanesCentral SI. Miami Hurricanes on SI right there in the Google machine. We appreciate everybody watching us on the Miami Hurricanes on SI YouTube channel or checking us out on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6 or right there on your favorite podcast platforms, The Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon.